She grew up in a small town where everyone knew each other. The streets were quiet in the evenings, and the smell of fresh bread often came from a tiny bakery at the corner. Music was always around her, even if no one else noticed it in the same way. She would hum to herself while doing small chores or walking to school, her voice soft and often lost in the wind. But it was there, and it was clear she felt alive when she sang. Her family was loving, but they did not understand much about music. They liked listening to the radio and would sing along with popular songs, but they never thought of music as a skill to develop. Still, they never stopped her from humming or singing at home. She would spend hours alone in her room, a small notebook of lyrics by her side, practicing melodies that came to her naturally. She loved watching how her voice could make people feel calm or happy, even if it was just her little sister in the next room who always smiled when she sang. One day, a new music teacher came to the school. She was quiet, with a kind face, and she had a way of noticing things that others might miss. When she heard the girl singing during a music class, she paused. The girl's voice was clear, pure, and strong in a way that was unusual for someone so young. Other students were struggling with simple notes, but she sang effortlessly, holding each note steady. The teacher was surprised and made a note to speak to her after class. After class, the teacher approached her. She said, "You have a gift, something special. I want to help you learn more about music." The girl was shy at first. She had never thought of her singing as something anyone else would notice or care about. But the teacher's words made her heart beat fast, a mix of excitement and nervousness. It was the first time someone had recognized her talent seriously. From that day on, she started attending extra music lessons. She learned about scales, rhythms, and different styles of singing. It was challenging, but she loved it. She would practice for hours, sometimes forgetting to eat or sleep properly, lost in the music. Her voice improved, becoming stronger and more controlled. But more importantly, she felt more confident. She realized that her singing could touch people in ways words could not. At school, she joined the choir. The choir director was strict and expected everyone to follow instructions. But she quickly noticed that the girl could handle difficult songs that others struggled with. During rehearsals, when a tricky note came up, the girl would sing it perfectly without hesitation. Other students watched in awe, and some even whispered that she was different, someone born to sing. She didn't mind the attention much. She was more focused on learning and improving. Her friends loved listening to her sing. Sometimes they would gather after school near the playground, and she would perform little songs for them. The way her friends reacted, clapping and smiling, made her feel a deep sense of joy. Singing was no longer just something she did alone. It became a way to connect with others. She started writing her own simple songs, inspired by the stories she heard from people around her. Each song had its own feeling, sometimes happy, sometimes sad, but always honest. Her family began to notice that something about her singing was changing. People in town started talking about how talented she was. The local bakery owner even asked if she could sing a song during a small festival in the town square. She agreed, nervous at first, but when she sang, people stopped walking and listened. Her voice floated through the square, reaching the corners where children were playing and old neighbors were sitting on benches. The applause that followed was warm and encouraging. She felt proud, but also a little surprised. She had never imagined that her voice could have this effect on people. As the days went by, she became more and more focused on her music. She would watch videos of singers online, trying to understand how they could reach such high notes or make their voices sound so full. She practiced slowly, learning to control her breathing, her pitch, and the way she expressed emotions through music. Sometimes it was frustrating when a note would not come out right, but she never gave up. She learned to listen carefully to her own voice and make small changes that made a big difference. The music teacher continued to guide her, giving her exercises and new songs that challenged her abilities. One day, she gave her a song that seemed almost impossible. It was complex, with high notes, fast changes, and a lot of emotion required. The teacher said, "This is not for everyone, but I believe you can try it. It will show you how special you are." The girl looked at the sheet music, feeling both fear and excitement. It was unlike anything she had sung before. Her hands shook slightly as she held the paper, but a spark of determination ignited inside her. She decided she would try no matter how difficult it seemed. She started practicing the song slowly, note by note. Sometimes she would stumble, hitting wrong notes or losing her rhythm, but she kept going. Late at night, she would sit by her window, singing softly so that no one would hear her mistakes. Over time, the song began to take shape. She started to feel the emotions behind the notes, and it became more than just a difficult piece of music. It became a story she wanted to tell with her voice. Her friends began noticing the change too. She was more focused, more determined, and her confidence grew. They cheered her on, excited to see what she would achieve. Even her family, who had once been unsure about all her hours of singing, began to believe that she had something truly remarkable. They listened to her practice, offering quiet encouragement and sometimes helping her with simple notes. Slowly, the town started to see her not just as a girl who liked to sing, but as someone whose voice could touch hearts. At school, during choir practice, the director finally heard her attempt the difficult song. Everyone stopped and listened. Even though she made small mistakes, the way she approached the song, with such honesty and emotion, was undeniable. The director smiled and said quietly, "This girl is different. She has something that can't be taught. Something rare." The words made her heart swell. For the first time, she felt that maybe, just maybe, she was capable of something extraordinary. As the sun set each evening, she would often sit by the window and hum the song she was learning. The notes seemed to carry on the breeze, reaching the ears of neighbors who paused to listen. Sometimes she would see a little child stop and smile, or an older person nod in appreciation. It gave her hope and motivation to continue. Singing was becoming her language, a way to share feelings that words alone could not express. Her journey had just begun, but already, people were starting to recognize that she was different. Not just in talent, but in her dedication, her passion, and the way she made music feel alive. Every note she sang, every song she practiced, brought her closer to something bigger than herself. She didn't know yet where it would lead, but she knew she had to keep going. Music was no longer a secret. It was becoming a part of who she was, and the world was slowly beginning to notice. She spent weeks practicing the new song the teacher had given her. Each day, she would wake up early, her mind already filled with the melody. Breakfast was quick because she wanted to reach her small room and begin her practice as soon as possible. The song was hard, with notes that seemed to climb endlessly, and rhythms that twisted in ways she had never experienced before. It was a challenge that made her both excited and nervous. She knew it was more than just a song. It was a test of her determination and her gift. At school, she began to notice the reactions of her classmates. Some stared at her curiously, whispering behind their hands. Others were impressed, quietly watching as she practiced her scales or sang the song slowly in the hallways. She was aware that people were watching, but she tried to focus on the music rather than their opinions. Still, a part of her felt the weight of their expectations, and sometimes that made her anxious. Her friends were supportive, though they didn't fully understand the difficulty of the song. They would ask her to sing for them during lunch breaks or after school, and she would do so, adjusting the song to fit the moment. Even in these small performances, she noticed she could reach notes that surprised both herself and those listening. Her voice seemed to carry more than before, and she felt a growing connection with the music that went beyond mere practice. At home, she would stay up late, sometimes past midnight, working on the most difficult parts. Her little sister would peek into her room and smile, asking her to teach the tricky notes. She would laugh and help her, enjoying the chance to share what she was learning. Her parents noticed her late-night sessions but didn't interfere. They began to realize that her talent was more than a hobby. It was her passion, and it needed room to grow. The song required more than technical skill. Each note demanded emotion, a way to make the music tell a story. She would sit quietly, imagining the feelings behind each line, thinking of people she had met, moments she had experienced, and stories she had heard. She began to see that music was not just about hitting the right notes but about making people feel something deep inside. The The challenge became not just to sing well, but to sing truthfully. The teacher kept encouraging her. She would listen patiently as the girl practiced and then offer guidance. Sometimes she would demonstrate a note or suggest a breathing technique. Other times, she would tell her to close her eyes and feel the music. Let it flow through you, she would say. Don't just sing the notes. Become the song. These words stayed with her, and she tried to follow them every time she practiced. There were moments of frustration. Some parts of the song seemed impossible, and she would make mistakes repeatedly. She would sigh, shake her head, and try again. There were days when she felt she couldn't reach the high notes or keep the rhythm steady. On those days, she would take a break, walking outside and humming softly to herself, letting the breeze carry the music. Slowly, she would return to practice, feeling a little stronger each time. Her friends noticed the change in her dedication. They began to admire her focus and determination, even if they could not fully understand the song itself. They would bring her water or a snack while she practiced, cheering her on quietly. Their support made her feel less alone, and she realized that even though music was her personal journey, it could also bring people together. The town itself started to feel her presence in subtle ways. Neighbors would hear her practicing through the windows and comment to each other about the girl with the amazing voice. The local bookstore owner even asked if she could perform a short piece during a reading event, and she agreed. Though the song was still a work in progress, she adapted a small section for the event and sang with all the emotion she could muster. People were amazed, and she felt a mix of pride and nervousness. Each performance, no matter how small, gave her confidence. One afternoon, during a school rehearsal, the choir director asked her to perform a section of the difficult song for everyone. She felt her heart race. The room was full of students, teachers, and some parents. She took a deep breath and began to sing. At first, the notes trembled slightly, but she steadied herself and continued. The high notes came clearer than ever, and the difficult rhythm fell into place. By the end, there was silence and then applause. The director smiled and nodded, signaling that she had done something extraordinary. The girl felt a mixture of relief and joy, knowing that her hard work was beginning to show. Despite the success, doubts still crept in. She worried that the next time she performed, she might fail. She thought about the whispers she had heard, about people saying the song was impossible. But then she remembered the words of her teacher and the feeling she got when the notes came together. She realized that what mattered most was not what others thought, but her own belief in herself and her music. Her parents were proud and supportive. They began helping her in small ways, encouraging her to rest and eat well. They attended school events and local performances, applauding her efforts and smiling with pride. Their support made her feel loved and understood, and she began to see that success was not only about talent, but also about having people who cared for her journey. As the weeks went by, she practiced the song more confidently. The impossible notes became manageable, and the rhythms that once seemed confusing now felt natural. She began to add her own emotion, finding little ways to make the song her own. She would close her eyes and imagine the story behind the music, the emotions she wanted to share, and the people she hoped would feel it. Each practice session became more than just learning the song. It became a journey of self-expression. One evening, she stood by her window, singing softly as the sun set. The notes floated across the street and reached the ears of neighbors walking home. Some paused to listen, smiling quietly at the beautiful sound. The girl felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She knew the song was still challenging, but she had grown. She had faced something that seemed impossible and had taken the first steps toward mastering it. Her friends and family began to talk about her differently. They saw her not just as a girl who liked to sing, but as someone with a rare gift. Teachers mentioned her talent to other music instructors, and the community began to whisper about the girl who could sing a song that no one else could. She felt proud, but also a little overwhelmed. The recognition was new, and she had to learn how to handle it gracefully. Still, she focused on her practice, remembering the lesson her teacher had given her. It was not enough to sing the notes correctly. She had to feel the music and let it flow through her. She practiced each day, sometimes alone, sometimes in front of friends or small audiences, learning to balance skill with emotion. Slowly, she began to see herself not just as a student, but as a performer with a story to tell. By the end of the second month, the song that once seemed unattainable was no longer an enemy. She could sing it with confidence, hitting high notes, keeping the rhythm, and expressing emotion. There were still moments of difficulty, but they were no longer intimidating. She had grown stronger, more patient, and more aware of what music could do for her and for those who listened. She realized that the journey of learning the song had changed her. She had learned patience, perseverance, and the power of believing in herself. She had discovered that even the hardest challenges could be overcome with dedication and heart. And though the song was difficult, it had become a part of her, a reflection of her spirit and her unique gift. She knew that more challenges awaited, but she was ready to face them, confident that her music could carry her forward. The day of the big school music competition arrived, and she felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness unlike anything she had experienced before. The hall was large, filled with students, teachers, and parents, all gathered to hear the best young singers perform. The atmosphere was buzzing with energy, and she could feel her heart beating faster as she waited for her turn. She held the sheet music tightly in her hands, even though she had practiced the song so many times that she knew it by heart. Backstage, other students were warming up, whispering to each other, or pacing nervously. Some glanced at her, curious and slightly intimidated. She noticed that many of them were unsure of their own abilities, and a small part of her felt the same doubt. What if she made a mistake? What if the song was still too difficult under the bright lights and in front of so many people? She took a deep breath, reminding herself of all the practice, all the late nights, and all the effort she had put in. She had prepared for this, and she would give it her best. Her friends and family were in the audience. Their presence gave her a quiet comfort. She saw her little sister waving at her and smiled, trying to focus on that feeling of encouragement. Her parents' eyes were full of pride, and she knew they had spent countless hours supporting her in ways big and small. The teacher who had first noticed her talent was there as well, nodding gently, a silent reminder that she believed in her. That belief gave her strength. When her name was called, she walked onto the stage. The lights were bright, and the audience's faces seemed a blur, but she did not let it shake her. She set her sheet music on the stand and looked out at the crowd, taking a moment to breathe and center herself. She closed her eyes briefly, imagining all the hours of practice, all the lessons learned, and the emotions she wanted to share through the song. Then she began to sing. From the first note, her voice filled the hall, steady and clear. She felt the music flow through her, carrying the emotions she had spent so long understanding. The high notes came naturally, the rhythms fell into place, and every note felt alive. She could hear the faint gasps from the audience, feel the attention, and yet she remained focused, connected to the music and the story she was telling. The song was no longer just a series of difficult notes. It had become a living thing, a message from her heart. The audience was captivated. Students who had whispered and wondered about her talent now sat silently, unable to take their eyes off her. Teachers exchanged amazed glances, realizing that what they were witnessing was rare and extraordinary. Parents leaned forward in their seats, holding their breath as the song continued. Even the small children in the front rows were watching in awe, their mouths slightly open as if they could not believe what they were hearing. She had managed to turn the impossible song into something that seemed natural, effortless, and deeply moving. As she reached the climax of the song, her voice soared, carrying the emotion of every word. She could feel the energy of the hall responding to her, the audience's anticipation mixing with her own. Her heart raced, not with fear, but with the thrill of performing something she had worked so hard to master. She felt a connection with everyone listening, as if the music was speaking directly to each person. It was a moment of pure joy and fulfillment, the kind of feeling that makes every struggle and every late night worth it. When the song ended, there was a brief silence, as if the audience needed a moment to process what they had just heard. Then, slowly, applause erupted, growing louder and louder until it filled the hall completely. She opened her eyes and saw people standing, clapping, and smiling. Her friends were cheering. Her family was clapping proudly, and the teacher was smiling with tears in her eyes. She felt a rush of happiness and relief. The song she had feared, the song that had seemed unattainable, had become a triumph. The judges whispered among themselves, clearly impressed. One of them stepped forward and said that the performance had been extraordinary, praising not only her technical skill, but also the emotion and depth she had brought to the song. They commented that it was rare to see a young singer perform with such confidence and feeling, and that her talent was undeniable. The words filled her with pride, but more importantly, they reinforced something she had already learned: that dedication, practice, and belief in oneself could turn even the hardest challenges into achievements. After the competition, people approached her, complimenting her voice and asking questions about her training. Local newspapers and social media started talking about her performance, calling her a young prodigy and praising her courage to take on such a difficult piece. She felt a mix of excitement and shyness. It was one thing to sing for her friends and family. It was another to have the entire town talking about her. She realized that her life was beginning to change, that her music could reach far beyond her small town. Her friends were especially thrilled. They hugged her tightly, cheering and laughing, proud to see her succeed. They had watched her struggle and practice, had seen the frustration and the determination, and now they could celebrate the result. Even her parents were glowing with pride, telling her how amazing she had been, how they had always believed in her, and how much joy her singing brought to everyone. Their support made her feel grounded, reminding her that success was sweeter when shared with those who cared for her. The music teacher pulled her aside later and said, "You did more than just sing a song. You showed the world who you are. Remember this feeling, and let it guide you in the future." The girl nodded, feeling the truth in those words. She knew that there would be more challenges ahead, more difficult songs and performances, but she also knew that she had learned something invaluable about herself and her abilities. She had faced the impossible and made it real, and that realization gave her courage for whatever came next. That evening, after returning home, she sat quietly in her room, reflecting on the day. She replayed the performance in her mind, thinking about the notes that had felt like mountains, the rhythms that had once confused her, and the emotions she had poured into each line. She smiled, realizing how far she had come in such a short time. The impossible song had been a test, and she had passed. But more than that, it had taught her about perseverance, courage, and the power of following one's passion. Her little sister came in carrying a small notebook. She had written a message: "You are amazing. I want to sing like you someday." The girl smiled and hugged her, feeling a warmth that went beyond any applause. She realized that music was not only about performance and recognition. It was about connection, about touching hearts and inspiring others. This understanding made her feel even more determined to continue her journey. The next few days were filled with excitement and new opportunities. People wanted to hear her sing again. Invitations came for small performances, and teachers began to think about how to nurture her talent further. She felt grateful for every moment, every challenge, and every person who had believed in her. The impossible song had become a turning point, the moment when everyone finally saw that she was different, and that difference was something extraordinary. Even as the attention grew, she remained humble. She knew that her journey had only just begun, and that the path ahead would require hard work, patience, and dedication. But for now, she allowed herself to enjoy the feeling of accomplishment, of knowing that she had faced something daunting and had turned it into beauty. The applause, the recognition, and the joy were not just for the performance itself but for the effort, courage, and heart she had put into it. As she prepared for bed that night, she thought about the future. There would be more songs, more competitions, and more challenges. But she also knew that she had discovered something important. Her voice was her own, and through it, she could express feelings and stories that words alone could not convey. She closed her eyes, humming a soft tune, feeling the music flow through her once more. The impossible song had become a memory, a symbol of what she could achieve, and a promise of all the songs she would sing in the future. After the competition, life began to change slowly for her. The recognition from her performance opened doors she had never imagined. People from her town, teachers, and even local media began to talk about the young girl who could sing a song no one else could. She became an inspiration for many, showing that dedication, courage, and talent could achieve what seemed impossible. Still, she remained grounded, knowing that the journey had only just begun. Invitations for small performances started to arrive. Local schools, community centers, and even small festivals asked her to sing. She was nervous at first, worried that the pressure of performing in front of new audiences would be overwhelming. But each time she stepped on stage, she remembered the feeling of accomplishment from the competition and the joy of sharing her voice. Slowly, her confidence grew, and she began to enjoy these new experiences. Her family continued to support her in every way possible. They helped her prepare for events, listened patiently as she practiced, and encouraged her when she felt nervous or unsure. They realized that her gift was extraordinary, but it was her dedication and heart that made her truly special. Even her little sister, who had once just enjoyed listening to her sing, now watched in awe as she prepared for new opportunities, learning from her example and admiring her determination. The teacher who had first recognized her talent played a crucial role during this time. She offered guidance, taught her new techniques, and encouraged her to explore different styles of music. She reminded the girl that every performance was a chance to grow, to express herself, and to touch hearts. With the teacher's support, the girl learned to balance technical skill with emotion, understanding that music was more than notes on a page. It was a story to be told, a feeling to be shared. One afternoon, she was asked to perform at a local charity event. The audience included people she had never met before, many of whom were struggling with their own challenges. She decided to sing the same difficult song that had made her famous at the competition. As she began, she noticed the faces in the crowd soften, the tension in the room fade. The song that had once seemed unattainable was now a bridge, connecting her with people through shared emotion. When she finished, applause filled the hall, louder and warmer than ever. She realized that her voice had the power not only to impress but also to comfort and inspire. Local newspapers and social media began sharing her story widely. People were amazed that someone so young could achieve such mastery over a song considered impossible. They described her as talented, determined, and exceptional. The attention was exciting but also overwhelming at times. She had to learn to manage the growing expectations while staying true to herself and her music. Her parents and teacher guided her, reminding her that her happiness and growth were more important than any recognition. At school, she became a role model for other students. Many admired her talent and dedication, and some began to pursue their own interests with renewed energy. Teachers encouraged younger students to observe her practice habits and learn from her focus. She did not see herself as a hero, but she understood that her journey could inspire others, and that gave her a sense of responsibility. She wanted to show that hard work, passion, and belief in oneself could make dreams possible. The success also brought challenges. People started expecting her to always perform perfectly, and the pressure could be intense. She sometimes worried about making mistakes or disappointing others. But she learned to cope with these feelings by focusing on the joy of singing rather than the approval of others. She practiced mindfulness, took breaks when needed, and reminded herself that every performance was a chance to grow, not a test she had to pass. Her music began to attract attention from professionals outside her town. Local musicians, music schools, and even distant teachers wanted to mentor her, recognizing her extraordinary potential. She attended a few workshops and masterclasses, learning new techniques and styles that expanded her musical understanding. These experiences opened her eyes to the wider world of music, and she felt a growing desire to explore it further, dreaming of future performances beyond her small town. Even as opportunities grew, she remained humble. She remembered the long nights of practice, the moments of doubt, and the first time she had sung the impossible song. Those memories grounded her, reminding her that talent alone was not enough. It was perseverance, patience, and love for music that had brought her this far. She wanted to continue learning, to continue improving, and to use her voice in ways that mattered. Her friends and classmates continued to support her journey. They celebrated her successes, helped her practice, and encouraged her when she felt nervous. They also reminded her to enjoy life outside music, to play, laugh, and spend time with people she cared about. Their friendship provided balance, showing her that while music was important, it was also essential to stay connected to the world and the people around her. The girls' performances became more than just shows. They became moments of connection and inspiration. Whether performing at school events, local festivals, or small community gatherings, she learned to read her audience, understand their emotions, and respond through her voice. Each performance became a story, a message, and a shared experience. People began to notice not just her talent but her ability to make music meaningful, to reach beyond technical skill and touch hearts. One evening, she was invited to perform at a larger city event. It was a step beyond anything she had done before, and the scale of the audience made her nervous. But she remembered the lessons from her teacher, the support of her family, and the joy she felt when singing. She focused on the music and the emotions behind it, letting the song guide her. When she finished, the audience erupted in applause, and she realized that her voice could reach even farther than she had imagined. The experience strengthened her belief in her abilities and her purpose. Her journey also taught her about resilience. There were moments when she felt exhausted, frustrated, or doubtful. Some days, the notes would not come easily, or she would feel that her performance was not good enough. But she learned to face these challenges with patience, understanding that growth came through effort and persistence. Each setback became a lesson, each mistake an opportunity to learn. This mindset helped her not only in music but in life, giving her confidence to face obstacles with courage. As recognition continued to grow, she remained focused on the music itself. She explored new songs, experimented with different styles, and wrote her own music inspired by the stories and emotions she encountered. Her creativity expanded, and she found joy not only in performing but also in creating. Music became a full expression of who she was, a way to share her experiences, feelings, and dreams with the world. The girl's story began to inspire others in her town and beyond. Young students saw that dedication and passion could achieve remarkable things, while adults were reminded of the power of perseverance and belief in oneself. She became a symbol of hope and encouragement, showing that even the most challenging goals could be reached with effort, heart, and courage. Through all of this, she remained humble and grateful. She knew that her journey was ongoing, that each new challenge would teach her more about herself and her music. She continued to practice daily, to learn, and to explore new opportunities. But she also cherished the moments of connection with her friends, family, and community, understanding that music was most powerful when shared and experienced together. By the end of this period, she had become more than a talented singer. She had become a figure of inspiration and a reminder of what dedication and love for one's craft could achieve. The impossible song that had once defined her challenge now represented her growth, determination, and ability to touch the hearts of others. She looked forward to the future with hope, excitement, and the understanding that her journey was just beginning, and that through music, she could continue to make a difference in the world as she continued her journey. The girl began to receive opportunities that she had never imagined. Music schools from other cities wanted to invite her for workshops, and experienced musicians offered mentorship to help her refine her talent. She felt both excited and nervous about stepping into a larger world, but she also knew that every new experience was a chance to grow. Her dream was no longer just about singing. It was about reaching people through her music and discovering the full potential of her own voice. She started traveling for small performances, sometimes with her family and teacher accompanying her, and sometimes alone. Each event brought a new audience, a new stage, and a new challenge. The first few times, she felt the nerves rising, but she reminded herself of all the hours of practice, the late nights, and the determination that had brought her this far. She focused on the music, feeling each note and rhythm, and letting her voice convey emotion rather than simply performing technical skills. Each performance became a story, a message, and a connection with the audience. Her family remained her anchor. They celebrated her successes and supported her through the challenges. They reminded her to rest, to take care of herself, and to enjoy the journey, not just the recognition. Her little sister often joined her on the road for performances, learning and sharing in the experience. Her parents helped balance her life, making sure that she had time for friends, play, and rest. They understood that while her talent was extraordinary, her happiness and well-being were even more important. She also began composing her own songs, inspired by the people she met, the stories she heard, and the emotions she experienced. She poured her heart into writing melodies and lyrics. Creating her own music gave her a new kind of joy. She realized that while performing was fulfilling, composing allowed her to express her thoughts and feelings in a unique way. The songs she wrote reflected her journey, her struggles, her victories, and the hope she wanted to share with others. Each composition became a part of her, a reflection of who she was becoming. In one memorable performance, she was asked to sing at a large cultural event in a nearby city. The hall was enormous, filled with people she had never seen before. For the first time, she felt the weight of an unfamiliar audience. The bright lights, the anticipation, and the sheer size of the crowd made her heart race. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of everything she had learned, the impossible song that had once been her challenge, and the joy of sharing her voice. She began to sing, and as the notes filled the hall, she felt a calm confidence. Each note carried emotion, each phrase told a story, and the audience responded with awe and admiration. By the time the song ended, applause filled every corner of the hall. She smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment and connection that went beyond words. News of her talent spread even further. Local media began covering her journey, and people from neighboring towns and cities wanted to hear her sing. She received letters from young students expressing how much her story inspired them, and from parents sharing how her music had touched their families. The recognition was rewarding, but what moved her most was the knowledge that her voice had the power to make a positive impact on others. She realized that her talent was not only for her own fulfillment, but also for touching hearts, inspiring dreams, and offering hope. Despite her rising fame, she remained humble. She continued practicing diligently, focusing on improving her technique, her emotional expression, and her ability to connect with audiences. She experimented with different styles, learning from experienced musicians, and discovering new ways to interpret songs. She knew that growth was a continuous process, and she was determined to never stop learning. Each performance, each composition, and each new audience was an opportunity to evolve and express herself more fully. Her experiences also taught her resilience. There were times when she felt exhausted, nervous, or unsure of herself. Some performances did not go as planned, and she made mistakes that frustrated her. But she learned to face these moments with patience, understanding that mistakes were part of the journey. Each challenge became a lesson, each error an opportunity to improve. This mindset strengthened her character and her confidence, teaching her that perseverance and self-belief were just as important as talent. She began mentoring younger students who were just discovering their own musical talents. She shared her experiences, encouraged them to practice diligently, and taught them to embrace both the joys and struggles of learning music. Watching them grow and gain confidence gave her a deep sense of fulfillment. She realized that her journey was not just about her own achievements, but also about helping others find their voices and encouraging them to follow their dreams. Her community remained a strong support system. Teachers, friends, neighbors, and family cheered her on and celebrated each new milestone. The town that had once watched her practice quietly in her room now took pride in her accomplishments, and the girl felt a deep sense of belonging. She understood that her journey was intertwined with the people who believed in her, encouraged her, and shared in her successes. Their support reminded her of the importance of staying grounded and grateful. Through all the performances, travel, and recognition, she never forgot the song that had started it all. The song that had once seemed impossible. It remained a symbol of her growth, determination, and the courage to face challenges. Every time she sang it, she remembered the journey, the struggles, and the triumphs that had shaped her. The impossible song had become a part of her story, a reminder that challenges could be transformed into achievements with perseverance, passion, and heart. In her quiet moments, she often reflected on her journey. She remembered the first time her teacher had noticed her talent, the late nights of practice, the nervous anticipation of the competition, and the overwhelming joy of her first successful performance. She realized that each step, no matter how difficult, had been essential in shaping her as both a musician and a person. She felt gratitude for the people who had guided her, supported her, and believed in her abilities. Looking to the future, she envisioned performing in larger venues, composing more music, and sharing her gift with an even wider audience. She wanted to inspire others to pursue their passions, to overcome challenges, and to believe in their potential. She understood that her journey was ongoing, that there would always be new songs, new stages, and new experiences. But she felt ready, confident, and excited to face whatever came next, knowing that her voice had the power to make a difference. Ultimately, she had become more than a talented singer. She had become a symbol of determination, resilience, and inspiration. The journey that began with a song once deemed unattainable had transformed her life and touched the lives of countless others. She had learned the value of hard work, the importance of belief in oneself, and the joy of sharing one's gift with the world. And as she continued to sing, to compose, and to inspire, she carried with her the knowledge that the impossible could become possible when approached with heart, courage, and dedication. Every performance was a new beginning, a chance to share her story, and an opportunity to touch hearts. She knew that music was not just about talent, but about connection, expression, and the power to make a difference. And with each note she sang, she reminded herself and others that being different was not something to fear. It was something to celebrate, nurture, and share. Her voice had become her way of showing the world that challenges could be overcome, dreams could be realized, and the beauty of human passion could shine through even the most unattainable songs.